Guys, let's see if it actually works this time. This is my second attempt at starting the live video for this evening of Phoebe's Cozy Corner. And this week we are going to be reading Cultures by Nick Land, also from Fanged, Noumena. If you're following along, it's on page 545. And then next week we're going to be going straight into the marathon that is Phenomenology of the Spirit. So before we get started, grab your drink, grab your tea, because it's Nick Land. I have my techno going and my alcohol and l'chaim. And I'm going to go ahead and start because I see someone watching. A Cultures section, Unscreened Matrix. Once it was said that there are no shadows in cyberspace. Now cyberspace has its own shadow, its dark twin, the crypt. Cyber Gothic finds the deep past in the near future. In Cathaltronic fusion between a digital data systems and iron ocean ionic seething, it unearths something older than natural mortality, something it calls unlife or artificial death. Of a death, there can be no lucid recollection, but only suggestion, seepage, hints, and it is by collating, sifting, and shuffling together that these disparate clues, the pattern can be induced to emerge, a pattern which ultimately condenses into the looming tangled shapes of subtle but placeable destiny. Hi, Daniel. Sprawling beneath public cyberspace lies the labyrinthian world of the datacombs, ghost stacks of sedimented virtuality spiraling down abysmally into the paleo-digital soft chatter from the punch card regime. Through junk programming, forgotten crypto cultures, fossil codes, and dead systems, regressively decaying into the pseudo-mechanical clicking relics of techno-tomb clockwork. It is deeper still, and spectral diagramics of unborn abstract machines that you pick up the main flatline into the crypt. The crypt is a splitting, a distance or departure, and it is vast. Nested into the cascading tick shelves, it propagates by contagion and flexing itself through the intricate terraces, galleries, ducts, and crawl tubes, as if an extraterrestrial megamodule had impacted into the chalk out data glyphs, splattering them with scorch punctures and intestinally complicated iridium body parts. As it pulses, squirms, and chitters into the inhuman rhythms of ceaseless K-Goth carnival, it reminds you that the catjungle was never reducible to a sonic subgenre, but was always also a terrain, a sub-Cartesian region of intensive diagonals and cutting through the non-geometric space where time unthreads into warped voyages, splintering the soul. Contemplating these immense vistas, it seems woundingly implausible that they are mere simulation, supported by a quantic electron distribution, the techno-commercial fabric. Down here, it makes more sense the other way, from the outside, or Lemuria. Love that reference. Strip out everything human, significant, subjective, or organic, and you approach raw K-matrix, the limit plane of continuous cessation or unlife, where cosmic reality constructs itself without presupposition, in advance of any natural order, and exterior to established structures of time. On this plane you are impossible, and because it has no end, you will find, and will have ultimately always found, that you cannot be except as a figment of terminal passage, an illusion of waiting to be changed for a Cthulhuoid continuum of destratified hypermatter at zero intensity. This is what A-death traffic accesses, and what it is announced by the burnt meat smell, frighted with horrible compulsion, that drifts up to you from the zombie dens. So you continue your descent into the crypt core, scavenging for an A-death hit. As you pass erratically through these exchanges, participations, and partial coalescences with the ghoul packs of the periphery, you change. Swarms and shoals include you, drawing you into collective fluencies, tidal motions, and the tropisms of multiplicity. You shed language like dry skin, and your fear becomes peculiarly, Chaim, back to you, Daniel. Chaim squared. That's Kabbalah for you. You shed language like dry skin, and your fear becomes peculiarly abstracted, metamorphosing. Oh no! Into the tranquil horror of inevitability. You pass across tiered platforms and along strobe corridors painted in multi-layered shadow, passing swirling dot drifts and plex marks, subchromatic coilings of blue-gray continuous variation, involving you in cumulations. That's the word. However you pronounce that basic word. In dispersions of subtly shifting, semi-intelligent shade pattern. The teeming surfaces tell of things, inextricable from a process of thinking that no longer seems your own, but rather a personal undertone and audible chattering, click, hiss, turmoil of xenomic diagrams and crypt-cultured traffic signs, which are also Lemurian pandemonium. Order becomes uncertain. It feels later. Is it only now that you meet the zombie maker, swathed in shimmering reptile skin and obscenely eager to trade? Ecumenic cash money will do. You sit in the coma bay and wait. A glimpse at the toxin-flecked fangs of the giant thanatopic centipede consecrated to Ihdod, and then a sudden pain jolt at the back of the neck where the spine plugs into the brain, instantaneous paralysis and crossing over. Even if you thought it would be the first time, you remember. The worst thing in the world. Fake eternities of stationary descent to the impossible, cross-cut by disintegrated furies of neuroelectric death hurt. An anonymous panic of inconceivable intensity swallowed by slow drowning until you are gone, or stranded in a halo of intolerable feeling, which is the same and cannot be, so that what is forever caught in the dark thyloid wave is a mere twist or fold of itself, carried unresisting into the immensities of real unbeing, so that nothing could ever happen except this. So say the K-Goths. No feet for you, Will. No, that's lovers only territory, my friend. I need more beer for this next section. What kind of freaky live streams are you watching on Facebook where there's feet? I feel really innocent all of a sudden. Thank you for that. The cultures, the unlife of the earth. Letter from Carl Gustav Jung to Echidna. You know, I never actually learned how to pronounce that. Echidna, sorry. Stillwell, dated 27th February 1929, an extract. Your attachment to a Lemurian cultural strain disturbs me intensely. From my own point of view, based on the three most difficult cases I have encountered and their attendant abysmally archaic symbolism, there's no exaggeration to state that Lemuria condenses all that is most intrinsically horrific to the racial unconscious, and that the true Lemurians, who you seem intent upon... Show your feet, Mark. Clocks. Who you seem intent upon rediscovering are best left buried beneath the sea. I agree with the theosophical writings, at least this far. It was an order that the darkest sorceries should be erased by deluge, that this continent of cultural possibility has been placed under the unconscious sign of definitive submergence. I know little about the nature of those who populated that cursed zone, but there are things I suspect that the line of your own researches confirms my most ominous intimations. Back to Nick Land. There is no evidence of a reply to this letter. Who were these three difficult cases? One, at least it seems, at least superficially, to be readily identifiable as Heidi Kurzweil. In September 1908, Kurzweil was detained in a secure psychiatric institution after the brutal murder of her twin brother in Geneva. She seemed to have lost the ability to use the first-person pronoun and was diagnosed as suffering from dementia praecox or schizophrenia. At her trial, she repeatedly claimed, "We killed half to become one twin, but it just wasn't enough." Young took an early interest in the case and began a series of analytical sessions. Kurzweil, in Young's journal and correspondence, became Heidi K., but only after 5 weeks he seemed to have abandoned hope of progress and disengaged with the analytic process. After his third session with Heidi K., exactly 20 years prior to his Stillwell letter, on the 27th of 1909, Young records the following words. "Dr. Young, we know that you are old in your other body. It is as old as hell. It has let you back, but it sends us away. It feels itself becoming Lemurian, and this definite unlife. There is nothing we could not do to escape, nothing, nothing, nothing. But it is fate. It howls electric bliss between ourselves. There's nowhere in time, and nothing's us. It is the body of nothing, and electric hot, an electric nothing body instead of us." In this instance, at least, there is little indication of the abysmally archaic symbolism Young promises us. On the contrary, there was a remarkable affinity with the hypermodern writings of K-Goth artificial death cultists documented elsewhere. The K-Goth crypt texts share a marked preference for anonymous pronouns, whether collective, second, or third person, whilst aspiring about and nullifying electric excruciation, traversed in the name of Lemuria. In the words of one anonymous crypt posting, "We burn each time but forget. When we begin each time it comes back, and no one would do it then, but it is too late. We cross over again into electric burning, but forget that it hurts in the brain to die this way. It takes so long to learn that it is grating apart and burning, that dying is felt in the brain, and that it is horrible. It is so horrible to feel, but then we forget, so it can happen again. Metal body screaming to die in electricity, metallic microparticle sex that is of unlife and not of the organism. That is what the zombie maker brings with the digital centipede bite, and we are hooked on it, hooked up to it, because coming the other way, it is Lemuria. Incessant, intolerable feeling, passing forever, approaching from the outside and feeling nothing continuously." What didn't happen at the Millennium? Oh, sorry, new section. Cultures, what didn't happen at the Millennium? Iris Carver is at first amused to discover that the cybergoths treat her as a fiction. Numerous crypt texts describe her near-future adventures in hallucinatory detail, especially when they intersect with the dark stream of Sarkon legend. Naturally enough, she intensifies her time cult research. When she finally meets Sarkon in 2004, she has forgotten almost everything. Pandemonium, what didn't happen at the Millennium? Oh, and Masha, to catch you up, it's Fanged Noumena, Stillnick Land before we go into Hegel next week. Hegel? I'm a sood, I'm such a sood. And this particular passage, the essay I'm currently reading now is a Cultures, if you want to follow along. Pandemonium, what didn't happen at the Millennium? There was something peculiar, I can never pronounce the word, peculiar about writing this book. At times she thought it never would be finished. The Sarkon stories had been full of holes which added up the confusion. Eventually she just started making things up, and even then that became entangled with coincidence and with cybergoth hyperstition, assembled from fictional quantities which make themselves real. She had found herself investigating various Neo-Lemurian cults, most of whom anticipated something huge around the 1999 spring equinox, when Pluto exits from the clutch of Neptune, triggering the return of the old ones. By the end of the century, things had been so wound up by Yetic apocalypticism that even the most extravagant socio-economic turmoil would have been a disappointment. And yet now, 4 years after the Millennium, the sense of anti-climax had begun to seem strangely artificial, as if it were screening something out. Carver has made her whole life out of hyperstition. Even her name is a pseudonym. She continuously returns to the imperceptible crossing where fiction becomes time travel, and then the only patterns are coincidences. Her notes on the Sarkhan meeting pulse with Lemurian sorceries, demonic swarms, ageless time wars, and searches for the limbic key. She navigates I've read this word thousands of times. Mobian circuits, feeling that a vaguely recollected rumor is still about to occur. And to catch someone else up, Nick Land, Fanged Noumena, Cultures. She navigates Mobian circuits, feeling that a vaguely recollected rumor is still about to occur. Section Appendix, Penultimillennial Crypt Cults from Cultures. Characteristics: 1.